Realtors across America are in panic mode right now because the home buyer demand, it's plunging even further as we enter 2024, with CNBC reporting that mortgage demand collapsed by 9.4% in the final weeks of 2023 despite a drop in interest rates. And it was this drop in interest rates that was supposed to reignite buyer demand in the market, but that's not happening. The home buyers are still on strike. Mortgage applications to buy a house, they finished 2023 at an index level of 141, which was down 12% year over year, down nearly 50% from pre-pandemic levels, and resting at the lowest level since 1995, suggesting a lack of buyer demand, a lack of home sales, and that home prices could go down further in many cities in 2024 if this buyer demand doesn't come back. In particular, I'm developing a concern that we are going to see a protracted and extended housing downturn in different cities across America, and that prices are going to continue to go down, particularly in some of the areas in red on this map. These are the cities where inventory has spiked the most over the last 1 to 2 years. Lots of inventory hitting the market, lots of desperate sellers piling up in these cities in red. And later in this video, I'm going to do a rapid fire round for you guys. We're going to look at 10 different cities in America and tell you guys where I think home prices are heading in those areas. But broadly, just to zoom out, the overall sentiment on the housing market is really negative right now, folks. Home buyers, they're still on strike. They're not coming back into the market. So I want to ask you guys a question right now. What percent of Americans do you think say it's a good time to buy a house versus a bad time to buy? I'll let you think about that for a couple seconds, and now I'm going to reveal the answer. According to Fannie Mae's most recent housing survey, only 14% of U.S. consumers and Americans think it's a good time to buy. That is a new survey low. And on the flip side, 85% of Americans think it's a bad time to buy. Look at this graph, everyone. 85% say it's a bad time to buy. 14% say it's a good time to buy. We've never seen anything like this before in the U.S. housing market in terms of how pessimistic home buyers are. So no wonder buyers aren't just jumping at the chance to buy a house just because mortgage rates went down to 6.7%. That's not enough of an improvement in affordability to bring the buyers back in. We're going to need to see mortgage rates likely go down further, and we're going to need to see prices go down by a lot to bring the buyers back into the market. And folks, to be clear, I'm not trying to be too negative here. I'm not trying to be too pessimistic. I'm simply reflecting what American consumers are telling Fannie Mae about how they feel about the housing market. In particular, Doug Duncan, Fannie Mae's senior vice president and chief economist, has some interesting insights. He says, looking back, consumer belief that it's a bad time to buy a home hit a survey high several times this year, and each time the pessimism could be attributed to high home prices and high mortgage rates. At the same time, consumers have experienced a reduced sense of financial security, with fewer respondents reporting household income growth over the year and a higher percentage saying their incomes remain the same. He continues, the combination of persistent affordability challenges and less rosy household finances remain the primary driver of low-level housing sentiment. Here's the key one, everyone. Even if mortgage rates decline over the next year, which is what we currently expect, it's unlikely to meaningfully affect affordability. As our forecast indicates, we believe it will be a couple years before home sales return to more normal pre-pandemic levels. So folks, that's the chief economist of Fannie Mae, the big government organization that gives out all the mortgages, basically telling you straight, this is a housing market that's going to take years to correct itself, and not to expect any type of immediate rebound in terms of home buyer demand, home buyer traffic, mortgage applications. And this is something that's a big pain point for realtors as well as mortgage brokers, because realtors and mortgage brokers make their money off transaction volume. Everyone, it's not even so much if prices go up by 10% or down by 10%. They care more about how many people are buying and selling homes. And unfortunately, until we see mortgage rates go down probably to 5.5% and we see home prices go down by 20%, we're not going to see a meaningful increase in buyer demand in 2024, despite what many elements of the mainstream media are trying to tell you. This is really the crazy thing about the reporting on the housing market that I can't help but laugh at, is despite the data, like on mortgage applications being at the lowest level in 3 decades, despite 85% of Americans think it's a bad time to buy a house. I still consistently see news articles trying to spin this idea that the housing market's recovering. Let's take a look at this article from ABC News, everyone. I think this is very emblematic of what you guys might be seeing out there. This article is titled, "Mortgage Rates Are Plummeting. Should Home Buyers Jump into the Market?" And the subheading here is, "Buyers could realize thousands in gains," which I'm not even sure what that means, but the approach carries risks. The article goes on to say, home buyers would be well served by a leap into the current market in early 2024, since the movement of mortgage rates often proves difficult to predict and purchasers reserve the ability to refinance if rates continue to fall, experts told ABC News. ABC News poses the question, should buyers jump into a newly attractive market that promises thousands of dollars in gains, or wait for the possibility of an even more favorable one? What is ABC News even talking about in that article? What experts are they quoting that are saying it's a good time to leap into the market right now? I mean, this is one of the more absurd things I've read on the housing market. And there's a lot of absurd stuff out there. There's a lot of crazy stuff on YouTube and Instagram. Lots of realtors try to FOMO people into buying a house, say you got to buy now in 2024. But this is ABC News. This is like a big institution as far as reporting, and they're completely misleading people, at least in the lead of their story, about the current situation in the US housing market. Because, folks, if you were to buy a house today, say in Florida, you would be buying into a market that's 30% overvalued. Prices are 30% overvalued in Florida compared to their long-term norms. You can see this is the highest level of overvaluation since the peak of the last bubble in 2006 before the big crash. At the same time, if you were to buy today, your house payment as a percentage of income for the typical Florida resident would be 46%. The typical Florida resident makes $72,000 with a yearly house payment of $33,000. That's 46% of income, while the long-term average house payment to income ratio is 26%. So this is literally the worst affordability on record in Florida's housing market, as well as many other housing markets across America. This house payment divided by income ratio is a key metric to understand affordability. And you can see all these areas in red, like in New York, it's 50%. In Maine, it's 46%. In Colorado, it's 46%. In Oregon, it's 52%. In California, it's 65%. I don't even know who's buying the houses in California, but it's certainly not the typical local. And all this is to say, it is not a good time to buy right now based on affordability metrics, based on overvaluation metrics. And the average American actually knows this, everyone. The average American isn't stupid. I think the average American probably goes on Zillow, looks at overpriced houses that were $300,000 3 years ago and are now $600,000, and they look at the 6.5% to 7% mortgage rate and they say, wait a minute, it's actually a better idea for me to rent. Like, I could actually save money by renting rather than buying. Or the average American might just say to themselves, hey, this is just too high a price for me to pay right now. I don't even have the down payment to afford it. So we continue to see this disconnect between what the average American thinks about the housing market versus what mainstream reporters and the mainstream real estate industry thinks about the housing market. Mainstream real estate industry and the reporters, they think there's a recovery occurring. They think people are going to come back in. Meanwhile, the average American, 85% of them say it's a bad time to buy a house. Mortgage applications are at the lowest level in 30 years. You got to look at the data. You got to look at the data for your city and neighborhood because there's big differences in what's going on across the US housing market right now. There's some cities, there's some neighborhoods that are crashing. There's some cities and neighborhoods that are indisputably crashing. Meanwhile, there's other cities and neighborhoods where home prices are still going up. And so you could be having a completely different experience in the US housing market depending on where you are. For instance, if we look here on Reventure app, there's a data point called percentage change from June 2022. And what this does is it measures the percentage change in home values from the peak of the bubble in mid-2022. And what you can see is like the western half of America, particularly the mountain states, have had declining prices. Idaho in first place at -9% from the peak. Meanwhile, at the other end of the spectrum, a state like Ohio has seen 5.7% appreciation in that span. A state like Connecticut has seen 11% appreciation. So right off the bat, if you're in Connecticut versus Idaho, you're experiencing something completely different. A trend that gets even more exacerbated when we look at different metro areas, folks. So like, for instance, Salt Lake City, home prices are down by 6%. The correction in Salt Lake City has started. However, in Miami, home prices are up by 9% in that same span. We look here on table view, we can see that the hardest hit metros in America are Austin, Texas, where home prices are down by 15%, Boise, where home prices are down by 11%, and New Orleans, where prices are down by 10%. So we have three larger metros where prices are down double digits, which is a pretty substantial decline for just a year and a half. Additionally, we have San Francisco metro, which is down by 9%. We have Reno, which is down by 8%. We have Provo, which is down by 7%. So these are the markets where prices have been hit the hardest. Meanwhile, we have other markets where prices are still up significantly, like Fayetteville, North Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, Syracuse, New York, Hartford, Connecticut, Kingsport, Tennessee, Knoxville, Tennessee. Prices are up double digits. And so you say to yourself, how can you use that information and data to understand where prices are heading in 2024? Well, let me tell you folks, in my research, the most important indicator that is determining where prices are heading is inventory. When you look at the number of homes for sale on the market in your city or zip code, that is going to tell you a lot about what the future direction of home prices should be in your market, particularly if the inventory has gone up a lot over the last 1 to 2 years and is now above the long-term average, more likely prices drop. Conversely, if inventory is still very, very low, say 40% below long-term norms, that means it's more likely that prices stay stable or keep going up. And right now, everyone, get ready, buckle up. I'm going to do a rapid fire round where in rapid succession, I cover 10 different housing markets across America. We're going to look at the trends in home prices. We're going to look at the trends in inventory and try to make some predictions about where things are heading in 2024. Let's get into it. First place I want to start, folks, is Tampa, Florida. And we're looking at how much prices have changed over the last 18 months. Well, you can see some interesting differences. Prices have gone up here in like mainland Tampa near the urban location, but down towards the southeast part of the metro, prices have started going down. However, here's what has me concerned for the Tampa metro is if I change the data point to sale inventory deficit, which compares the inventory of active listings in the most recent month compared to the long-term average, we can see inventory is now way up in a lot of different areas of Tampa, particularly in Pinellas County. We have 30, 40% increases in inventory from long-term norms, which is a signal that prices could be going down in some of these areas in red. Similarly, if we go to Atlanta, Georgia, you can see that there's big differences actually in inventory levels. If you go to the northern suburbs in Atlanta, inventory is down 20, 30% from normal. But if you go to the southern part of the metro, inventory is way up. So there's a sell-off occurring in southern Atlanta, no doubt due to the fact that so many investors bought into that area. The sell-off is occurring here. And as a result, prices, are going down here in southern Atlanta due to the higher inventory, whereas they're still going up in the northern part of the metro. What about Dallas, Texas? You can see Dallas actually has an almost identical thing going on to Atlanta, everyone. The wealthy suburbs to the north are still experiencing appreciation, while some of the more investor-driven areas to the south and southeast are still going down in value. What I want to point you to is the huge regional differences in Dallas. Values are going down pretty much everywhere on the far out suburbs and rural parts of the metro, whereas they're still going up north of Dallas downtown. How about Los Angeles, everyone? Now, what I actually want to point you to here in LA is the inventory situation, because we have a big difference in inventory. Inventory is like up or normal in many parts of Los Angeles County. However, if we go down to Orange County near Anaheim and Irvine, inventory is way down. So inventory in Orange County is still super, super low, down like 60% in some of these areas. Everyone, look at this. Normally, this zip code here in Orange County has 127 listings. Today, it only has 47. And so long as that inventory in Orange County really stays low, we're likely to see prices go up, while we could see prices go down more in Los Angeles County in the first 6 months of 2024. What about Seattle, everyone? I know I got a lot of you guys out there in Seattle here in this rapid fire round. We're about halfway through. Stick with me. You can see actually towards the urban area of Seattle, inventory is up from its long-term averages, while in some of these suburbs, like in Redmond, inventory is still down. So it's super important that you guys understand what's happening in your neighborhood and zip code. Like, I can't stress this enough. You could be seeing in your neighborhood something completely different than someone else 5 miles away. And the only way you would know that is by comparing the data on inventory and home prices and seeing what the trends are today and historically. You can do that on Reventure app, www.reventure.app. I would encourage you guys to go there after this video and check it out. But first, let's finish this rapid fire round. Next, let's go to the East Coast, everyone. Let's go to Boston. I know sometimes I have some of you guys complain I don't cover the Northeast as much. Well, let's do it right now. Now, I want to show you the home value changes in Boston. So what you can see actually is that in urban Boston and Cambridge and all these places, values are down. over the last 18 months. They're down anywhere from like 3 to 5%. So a correction in Boston has started. However, if you zoom out to the suburbs in the Boston metro, you can see values are still going up. That's what the tiles in red mean here. The values are still going up. And so this is a really interesting situation where the urban area in Boston is going down, but the suburbs are going up. What about New York, everyone? New York is another interesting one where we're actually seeing like a huge downturn in Manhattan. Look at this, everyone. There's some zip codes in Manhattan where values are down 25% or 28% over the last 18 months. The Manhattan real estate crash is still happening, make no mistake. But almost again, like Boston, you zoom out, you could see values are going up in northern Jersey, almost as if people are selling their condos in New York and buying houses in northern New Jersey or buying houses up in Westchester where values are still going up. What about Chicago, everyone? Let's get some Midwest action. We have 2 more cities left here. Stick with me. You can see in Chicago, again, lo and behold, it's a similar situation. Values are down in much of the urban Chicago area, and particularly the south side of Chicago, down 12% over the last 18 months. However, if we go up to the northern suburbs here, we are seeing prices are still going up. Many of these northern suburbs in Chicago are actually very wealthy. Why are prices still going up in these areas? Well, if we look at the sale inventory deficit, inventory is down 60%. And let's finish things off, folks, with Austin, Texas, because I want to show you what Austin looks like. And even if you guys don't live in Austin, just pay attention to this, because Austin is the example of what you want to happen in your housing market to see cheaper and more affordable prices. You can see inventory in Austin is up everywhere. Inventory is up anywhere from like 37% to 100% from the long-term norms. You can see in this zip code here, inventory is normally 43 homes. Today it's 88. It's more than double. So when you have that high level of inventory, it's going to cause prices to drop. You can see in Austin, prices are down everywhere, 13 to 17 to 18%. It's a full-scale crash in the Austin housing market. And the reason why is because of more inventory. So as a home buyer in 2024, you need to track the inventory levels in your market. You need to track the trends in home price growth. And to do that, go to www.reventure.app right now. All you have to do is just type in your city into the search bar. You will immediately see the data available to you on home values, home value growth, inventory growth. Those data points are free. And what I would actually encourage you guys to do is after you use the free data, sign up for a premium plan for at least just 1 month. The cost is $39, billed monthly. You can cancel at any time, and that will give you access to all the premium data points like overvaluation rates. So you can see how overvalued home prices are in your market. You can see how much prices have gone up or down since the middle of 2022. You can see how many sellers are cutting the price and what that data looks like historically. Knowing that information is going to be instrumental in helping you make a more informed decision in 2024. So go to www.reventure.app right now and check the data out for your city.